I actually hit a period that many entrepreneurs, high performers in many different realms deal with at one point or another, and that is burnout. So yeah, that's why I was a little bit missing from this channel for a while, because I couldn't take very simple steps in my business to promote it or to do anything related to my business, simply because I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to take it. I was having some serious questions about whether I actually wanted to be in the online business space to begin with. I would quite routinely go down the hustle culture, the Alex Hormozy style of entrepreneurship, of you just simply do the volume, do the work, etc., etc. And the more I pushed in that regard, and the more I tried to narrow my focus, the more I found that I was actually just draining myself and not really making any strides in my business at all, to the point that I just burned out completely. And it's really interesting. So I'm almost 2 years in business, right? And the vast majority of online fitness trainers, or anyone who becomes a coach in the fitness industry, I think this is true of most businesses, within 2 years, like 90% of people have already given up, right? And I was extremely close to giving up through a combination of many factors. Some of you on this channel might know that I struggle quite a lot with ADHD. It's now been confirmed as being in my family. So my father has the exact same ADHD traits and struggles that I do. And a lot of the time that will manifest as paralysis, which just creates this, not physical paralysis, but like just this mental paralysis of initiating tasks. And then that just ramps up all this anxiety and low self-esteem, and it just completely drains your energy, and you go to really, really dark places. And that's where I was the last few weeks. And simply put, it's because I was putting way too much pressure on myself to have a thriving six-figure business. And I realized I don't actually have to, right? The big realization I had this week, and it's how I'm structuring my business moving forward, is my business is simply the operational, I guess, what would you call it, income stream that just facilitates my livelihood. It doesn't actually have to be a business structured as a business. Obviously it does legally, but I mean run with the same kind of conviction of somebody who is looking to grow and scale a business. Through my many failed ventures, I've realized that is not me. I'm simply not responsible enough when it comes to abstract concepts, right? Anything that exists kind of in the imaginary realm of the business, whereas I can be quite responsible in the moment, in short-term interactions. That's where I really thrive. It's where the ADHD brain really thrives. And I've been playing around with a lot of ideas of how I actually want to even take on another job in addition to what I do with my coaching. Maybe I want to be a waiter, or I want to be a bartender, or something that gets me moving, and it's kind of centered around having a good time, not necessarily so serious. And I decided to restructure my coaching, where I just whittle down my numbers of the amount of clients I have to very, very few clients. Moving forward into 2026 and beyond, keeping those coaching numbers small, so that I really give a lot of presence and attention to each and every client, and I'm really invested in their journey. The 2 years thus far in business has really taught me a lot about what kind of an entrepreneur I am and who I am in general. So a few learnings I've realized through this process. So I've worked with a few different mentors now, and coming into 2026, I will not be working with any more mentors, because I've learned pretty much anything I want to for what I currently want in the business. And maybe that'll change like 3 years down the line, who knows? But I'm 33 years old, and I know for me that I actually just have so many different interests across a broad range of topics, and I want a lot of time and ability to explore those without being saddled with so many responsibilities of trying to scale a business. So what's happened to me over the course of my adult life is that because I've always felt like a square peg in a round hole due to the ADHD. I need structure, but I hate routine. I hate anything repetitive. I want to keep moving all the time. I hate being pinned to a desk, which is kind of ironic because I'm in online coaching. But I can also really excel at certain times. It's just very difficult for me to gauge when I'm going to be able to give it my all to my online business. So it's like predictability and the consistency is the problem. I'm a consistent person, but it's just very volatile. It's not so predictable is the problem. There's not a pattern to it. And the pattern tends to change and shift. It's like playing whack-a-mole or chasing a moving target continually, right? And everyone has that to some extent. It's just it's more extreme with anything that's a dopamine disorder, which ADHD is. So what I've realized is that I don't need to grow an online business in the way that I guess a lot of people would consider to be successful, right? I only need a certain amount that I stay curious, I stay invested in this business, that I'm able to explore other things. And that really fills up my energy to spend a lot of time moving, a lot of time present with people in my life, to spend a lot of time on connection, which I can then give into the energy that I give into the select few clients that I work with. I've realized in the 2 years of doing this business that's where I find the most alignment in my life, because I've had multiple things on the go before. I remember when I had my first business, which was a clothing company. I was also an online consultant in the tech industry, completely separated. And it's funny how I would find inspiration and solve problems in both of those that I had taken abstract concepts from the other, right? So like being involved in the clothing business helped me problem solve in the tech consultancy role and vice versa. And that's always how I found I work best, is when I'm working across multiple things. I like to progress laterally, not necessarily in one straight line. But I think the 2 years thus far that I've spent just laser-like focused on the fitness business is where I can now safely say I know the direction I want to take it. I know how, I know the constraints that I need to put in place to take it to where I want it to go, whilst also exploring all these other avenues in my life, because the ADHD brain needs a lot of novelty in the system. It needs a lot of movement. In some ways, it needs to be obsessed on something that's completely not related to the day job to make the person more effective in the day job. So I'm really grateful that I've managed to get to this place, this point of clarity, because in the last few weeks and months, I had just gone on a huge spiral where I was literally unable to work on my business for probably about the last month, if not more. And as you see the bank balance going down the entire time, and you can't make even a simple decision, it's quite a scary place. And it's interesting how this might relate to my audience, to high performers who I coach. I guess it's just giving people a bit more of an insight into me, into how I operate, how I work. And also, I guess this is a struggle that many other people would have of the people I coach, because, high performers tend to try different things, and they also tend to put a lot of pressure on themselves to be the absolute best at whatever it is that they do. And I've realized just that for myself, variety is a much better substitute for me than perfection in any one area. I know that that's going to give me a much more fulfilling life, rather than being obsessed with scaling a huge business. There are many people in the world who will do that, and they are going to do it a lot better than I ever could. And I respect the hell out of them for being able to do it. But I've come to realize that that's not the kind of entrepreneur I am. And yeah, it's just interesting to reflect on how I've seen so many different types of entrepreneurs over the years that we all tend to take inspiration from. You know, you've got Richard Branson, who is like just super wacky and kind of eccentric, and he seems to kind of not have any real rhythm or rhyme to the way he operates. And then you would have had like influences like Steve Jobs, who was like, you know, black turtleneck and eating an apple a day, extreme kind of stuff. You've got the likes of Alex Hormozy, which is just, he is just a ruthless, like getting it back to like the bare basics of what someone needs to do to move the needle. Then you've got guys like Daniel Priestley, who is a little bit more like, you know, he's drawing from multiple sources in terms of where business comes from and how you lead a customer into your world. You know, there's so many different types of entrepreneurs, different archetypes of entrepreneurs that can lead to a successful life, whatever success is for you. I just want to give whoever needs to hear this the permission to view success in a different light. You don't necessarily have to succeed and be the best in one domain for you to have a very successful overall happy life. You could have a life where the success is that you manage to squeeze as much variety and as much novelty out of life as possible as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to grow a specific area of your life down a very narrow and linear path. The growth of a person can also be done by, you know, flitting around the edges of many different areas and then drawing inspiration from all those areas. It has me thinking quite a lot about how there's a difference between the entrepreneurial brain and the artist brain. If any of you have read The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, you'll know what I'm talking about, where everything he speaks to in that book is almost like it's like a reversal of what you'll see in you know, most of the mainstream entrepreneurial advice, or at least the advice that's out there at the moment. And it's basically helping an artist-style brain to thrive, which can be done in business. You know, I know people like that, but it's almost taking the complete opposite approach, and working laterally rather than in a straight line. You know, things like stress and challenge don't necessarily suit that brain type in the same way, whereas nothing but positive reinforcement and variety and novelty tends to be the better approach for those kind of creatives. Because at the end of the day, an artist and an entrepreneur, they're both creatives, but it just comes from a different place and it's done in a different fashion, right? With the artist, it has to come from a place of inspiration, and it has to come from a very strong sense of alignment, where what I see in the business world is it's a bit more like the ability to problem solve and to shift gears, to be a chameleon in a sense, where you reflect back what it is that the customer wants, whereas the artist tends to instill wants in the customer based on what they intuitively enjoy themselves, and that's what they create. I would definitely say I fall more in the artist camp in terms of how my brain operates, but I'm very grateful for the mentorship that I have had thus far in helping me learn the ropes of entrepreneurship just enough that I can feed myself while giving myself more of what I need on an intellectual, a curiosity, a novelty, a spiritual level, rather than trying to, you know, just do more of the thing that's working. I guess it's probably the antithesis to the Hormozy approach, right? You know, because that's one of the things he quite often says is like, whatever the thing is that's working, just do more of that. For someone like myself, yeah, like that. At times I've toyed with that. I've tried to do that, and all it's ever ended up in is burnout, stagnation, and and ultimately me beating myself up more than maybe I should, because I'm trying to put a square peg into a round hole, you know. I've the type of brain where maybe today I really intended on working on sales outreach, but the only thing I'm capable of doing is editing content. Well, I need the ability to actually pivot and to edit content. And then when I get back into sales mode, that's coming from a place of alignment. I've found that is the path forward for myself. And I don't know who needs to hear this. But yeah, in the beginning, you do have to kind of put yourself into a position that maybe is not completely in alignment with yourself, because you just need to do the volume, you need to get up and running. But then over time, you can start to think, all right, what is the approach that is best suited to me, and what do I really want to get out of business and out of my career, out of my work, out of my life. And with this newfound realization, I'm looking forward to being more present with people, honestly. I had it in my head that at minimum I needed to get this business to like 6 figures a year. And then I needed to like think about scaling it, because if you're not scaling it, if you're not growing, then the business is going backwards. And I think that I just had the complete wrong view of it. And what that led to is it led to me being very anxious. I haven't been present in the last really 2 years with anyone that's been in my life. I've put the wrong things. I've put the cart before the horse. I've put my goals, I've put my growth, like, you know, productivity, that type of stuff, ahead of relationships, ahead of friendships, ahead of my family, you know, and actually that's not me at all. It was coming from a place of anxiety, a place of guilt that has come from gurus on the internet, right? Who I guess are just a little bit more transactional and probably a little less sensitive than I am. And I've just realized that I do have that sensitivity. I have probably a bit more vulnerability, and I need to work with that, not, I guess, shame myself for being a bit more of a sensitive bloke who needs to, you know, treat business in a different way. And on reflection, any of the opportunities that have come to me in my life have come from actually letting go, from not taking myself or life too seriously. And that's when everything comes to me. But the second I start trying to control the outcome, control the numbers on the balance sheet, to, you know, robotically do the to-do lists in the order that it's meant to be done, that's the second I start falling apart, because I simply cannot do it. It's not me. And yeah. Hopefully that's helped someone. And just to tie it back to what I actually do for a living. So I work with high performers, and that's an umbrella term for many different types of professions, but it's more of a psychographic. It's individuals who basically make their work kind of a big part of their life, right? And performance is a big part of their life. So it could be that you are a business owner, a creative. I've worked with many actors. I work with a lot of business owners. And also some C-level executives, you know, who have a lot of responsibility. I think high performers are like basically the engine of the entire economy. In the modern era, particularly in Western countries, high performers, entrepreneurs, people who are ambitious, get a very bad reputation, especially among people like Gary's Economics or any of these kind of channels that you have floating around the UK, for example. But yeah, it's completely ludicrous, because people who are empire builders, business owners, the ones who are that productive in a way that I could never hope to be, those are the people who actually kick off every bit of economic opportunity that trickles down to the rest of us. So without you guys, nothing gets done, nothing gets created, nobody has any opportunity to monetize what they do or to pay themselves for their creativity, for their art, or just for their work. So yeah, these are the individuals I like to work with, because in my previous profession, in the tech industry, I noticed many people like that who unfortunately put their health on the back burner, and once their health was gone, it was gone, and there was no money in the world that could ever really get it back. So this is the demographic of people that I serve. And I do say serve because I work in a way that's not like your typical online coach, right? It's not, top down spreadsheet, just rinse and repeat the program, because I know that you're busy traveling, you've got an ever-changing schedule. Maybe a big part of your career or your business is actually entertaining clients over drinks, over dinner, etc. And we need to be like Bruce Lee, we need to be like water, I don't think he was like water, but he said be like water. Anyway, we need to be adaptive, we need to be flexible, we need structure, but we also need to not be so rigid. And a lot of how I learned to do that was trying to survive in the world with adult ADHD, with all the baggage of trying to perform and be the best at absolutely everything that I've ever tried to do, which ultimately backfired, but I don't think it's going to backfire for you. But I've learned a lot of tips and tricks along the way about how we can tread that line between performance and also flexibility, how we can be adaptive rather than being reactive, and how we can do a bottom-up, completely bespoke custom approach rather than being top-down and rigid. So yeah, I hope some of you have found that helpful. There'll be a link in the description about how you can check out my services on the High Performer Fitness Transformation. And have a good evening, good weekend, and it's good to be back on YouTube.